5 tips to help you care more as a mechanic in the service shop. Hey folks, welcome back to the Wrench Nerds podcast, Coach's Corner edition. It's a show to help mechanics and service leaders, but mostly mechanics, live happier, healthier, more productive lives, but pull in examples from coaching and things that worked for me as a mechanic, as well as things that worked for mechanics that I've coached. Things like technical skills that aren't actually technical, or knowledge and tactics I've learned over the last 20 years working in, on, or around the automotive industry. On today's episode, following up last Mechanic Minute, is talking about caring. We led in with technology, and we're going to talk about caring today. So without further ado, let's get into it. So, I wasn't stuttering when I started the video. We're going to talk about caring. Some of you watching and listening right now are going to go, what the fuck is he talking about? Ain't nobody care about us. Why the fuck should we care about anybody else? You're not wrong, and you're not right either. So if you listen to Mechanic Minute, I go into a little bit more detail about some things. One of the major concerns in our industry is that nobody cares. Now, there are folks that do. I'm one of them. I do care. Unfortunately, there is not many of us that do. The challenge is that the industry is so difficult to stay in long term. It's difficult just to be, let alone be in. That we forget some of the things that perhaps us elder mechanics forgot. For example, think back, if you happen to be in the trade for 15, 20 years like myself, look back to your first day. What was it like? Did you have somebody who cared for you, who took care of you, who showed you the ropes, like a foreman or a senior tech or somebody who took you under their wing? That person cared. Now, some folks don't get that opportunity or that luxury. That's unfortunate. It truly is a very unfortunate thing to not get to experience that mentorship. Marshall Sheldon, a family as part of the show, regularly teaches new mechanics, many of them young mechanics, how to not just turn wrenches, but how to work hard so that they can provide for themselves and their families. And it turned into a way of life. I'm thankful for that. I'm very thankful for him. Those are the kinds of things that we need more of in this trade. And it comes down to the fact that he cares. Fundamentally, he cares. And it's because he does a whole series of things that puts the apprenti or the mentee or the coachee, however you want to phrase it, the young mechanic, it puts them in a frame where they're being helped along the way. Marshall, among many others, like other family of the show, Richard Mueller, Russell Wickham, Stefan DeSantos, uh, Zach Perkle, when he was on the floor, and now he's doing it from a much higher level, and Robert Stage, who's now doing it from the classroom. These gentlemen, and if there's any ladies listening or anyone know of any ladies in leadership roles that are guiding young mechanics through, I would love to hear from you. Quick shout out, please get in touch with me. I'd love to have you on the show. But they all fundamentally have a series of things that they go through regularly, or that they do, or ideas and principles that they try to carry every day. Like I said, I wanted to give you 5 things. So the first one is internal count. I'm stumbling here tonight, folks. I'm going to leave this bit. Is internal collaboration. So I wrote some out here, so forgive me. Foster strong communication and collaboration with service advisors and other team members. This ensures that all aspects of the repair process are well coordinated and that everyone is on the same page. This applies to just existing in the shop as well as teaching young mechanics, working with older mechanics who perhaps haven't had the guidance to help them be the most successful that they can be. But this all stems around caring. If we care what the team does, the team also cares what we do. If we collaborate and we work together and work as a team and we care about how the rest of the team performs, everybody wins. Now, naysayers will say, well, it's flat rate, it's cutthroat. Well, in a poorly run shop, yes, absolutely. You will get cutthroat sons of bitches that all they want to do is try and hike away all of the good work, quote unquote, good work being either stuff that they can make good money on or it's jammy Dodger stuff time. But those are toxic individuals. They're awful human beings. We don't want to promote those people, literally and figuratively. So people who care, genuinely care, irrespective of what the pay plan looks like, will collaborate with the rest of the team to make the whole team succeed. The caveat there is if you don't have a leader willing to put the whole team together and come up with solutions to problems or overcome barriers or whatever the case may be, if you don't have a high enough value leader, you may not be able to do that with the team that you're working with. So that was number one, internal collaboration, a way to for you to think as a mechanic, what can I do to collaborate with the rest of the team to help the team because I care about the team. Okay. So number two, thorough documentation. I wrote a little bit about this, but I'm going to go into detail. But maintain meticulous records of each repair or service performed. Clear and comprehensive documentation helps streamline workflows, reduces errors, and ensures consistency. Folks, I have persistence tattooed on my forearm. It is there for a reason. Consistency, persistence, documentation, thorough. I use the phrase thorough documentation. If you're not documenting the bejesus out of everything, it is A, difficult for auditors to come back and reclaim warranty time. It is difficult for customers to misunderstand what you're saying if you meticulously and eloquently document what you're doing. Now, there is an aspect of concise and simple as well, but it is far better to be meticulous and thorough, even if it has lots of technical jargon in it. It is better to do that than the alternative, which is little to none of it and confusing everyone or not putting the right information in. Because A, you'll get customers that are unhappy because they think that you haven't done something, or B, warranty auditors who will reclaim because perhaps you didn't write the appropriate spec in the documentation somewhere, somehow. So, number two, things that help you care and help the team and show you care, both the customers and to your team. Thorough documentation. Number three, continuous training. I'm going to say this again, continuous training. I've talked about the Wrench Nerd's Wellness Survey before, and I'll say it again. The folks making the most amount of money are the ones that are the most well trained. Period. End of chat. There is little to no exception to this. The exceptions seem to be, as I progress and talk to more folks, the exceptions to the rules are the ones that are getting gravy fed to them. Period. They are not making large value tickets and making lots of money on large value tickets like an engine re or transmission re. They're not making money on those. They're making it lots and lots of money on maintenance. So continuous training is Not going to necessarily overcome being fed gravy, but it will overcome 99% of the other stuff that we deal with as mechanics. And that's one of them is caring. If you care about the car you work on and you care what the end result is, you should care about your level of training. Because without the appropriate level of training or more, you're not going to have the kind of outputs that you want. Not at the expeditious manner that you want it, not at the level of quality that you want it without continuous training. I wrote something here about continuous training. Staying updated on the latest automotive technologies and repair techniques. Even without the direct customer conversation or communication that you may or may not have, especially if you folks are in the dealership, your expertise and your ability to eloquently convey what you're talking about on the work order or to a shop foreman or to a service advisor, being able to eloquently do that, especially if you can do it eloquently and simply, you're going to be so much more successful. And because you're so much more successful in that way, you can care more about the end product. You care about the end product because of that. Your training affecting how well you do the job, and then you can be proud of what the output is. So that's number 3, continuous training. Number 4, efficient workflow. So this one's complicated and not complicated at the same time. Focus on optimizing your work processes to minimize repair time while maintaining quality. Efficient practices contribute to the dealership's overall productivity and profitability. I know we haven't talked about gross profit, we haven't talked about ELR, we haven't talked about things like HPRO and stuff that I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that over the next couple of weeks. We're going to write about it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to bring it up, or we're going to do some sessions. I'm going to try and get the 10 mil mastery guys in here. We're going to do some coaches corner, maybe one-on-one in coaches corner to try and level up the value as much as I can so we can talk about it so you guys can learn about it. But more importantly, we're talking about the time management portion as well as steps. So, folks, I've been talking about journaling for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I've been talking about using the whiteboard and using a grace marker to try and figure out ways that you can expedite specific jobs or remove negative mindsets or things that you shouldn't be doing in your day. Well, efficient workflow, optimizing your workflow can also show you care and help the team see you care, which elevates the whole team. Just by you caring about your workflow, understanding, where you are in the shop. And I mean that literally speaking, where you are in the shop. Because there are folks who got super lucky, we'll call it lucky, where their bay is right next to the part department, where they can just literally, turn from their toolbox, walk around the corner, open the door, and they're in the parts department. Boop, 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 and they're in there. 4 steps, almost the same number of steps between the car and their toolbox, and they're in the parts department. And there's other folks who happen to work at medium to large size dealerships that perhaps don't have parts carriers and things like that. Well, they gotta trudge all the way over to the parts department and go, "Hey, I need a can of brake clean." All for a can of brake clean. So you have to think about your workflow. What can I do to optimize my workflow? Can I take this work order and this notes and this things because I have to communicate to a service advisor about a job I did yesterday, and I have to make sure that the parts got ordered, and I got to talk to him about it because something I thought about at 2 o'clock in the morning last night. I got to talk to him about it, and I'm going to take this up, and then I'm going to go to the parts department and get a can of brake clean, and then I'm going to come back to the special tool bin, and I'm going to get SST number 4, and then I go back to my bay and I get back to work. Thinking about your next steps, playing chess with it, as it were, thinking about, okay, what are my next 4 steps? And then what are the next 4 steps after that? And I know a friend of our family, Russell, says never let them know what your next move is. But sometimes might be a good idea literally when it comes to the shop. Because if you're constantly trudging all the way over to the parts department, it's not very efficient workflow. Again, this is a reason why you journal, right, folks? You journal. How many times do you walk over to the parts department? How long does it take you to walk from your bay to the parts department? How many steps is it? How much time is it? And I mean that literally speaking. Get out a bloody stopwatch or get out your phone with the stopwatch on it, and press the button and figure out how many times, how many steps, and how long it takes to get to the parts department. And every time you do that, you double that number, so to speak. How much time do you spend walking there? How much time do you spend walking over to the lathe? Or how much time do you spend walking over to the tire machine? All of these things contribute to your lack of productivity. But here's the thing we're talking about. We're talking about caring, right? We're talking about caring in the shop, caring about yourself, caring about your team, caring about the business. Well, by you documenting these things, challenges we're talking about here specifically, but when you document these things, and then, when you perhaps have a monthly sit down with your shop foreman or a weekly meeting with your shop foreman or your, quarterly review with the service manager, and you have the stuff written out, you care. It's not a gripe. It's not a complaint. It's like, hey, over the last 90 days, I tabulated here. I walked to the parts department about 7 times a day for various and sort of reasons, and I can list the top 5 reasons why. But I walk to the parts department 7 times a day, and it takes me 38 seconds to walk one way. Um, is there any way that I can help the process here, maybe to cut that number down? Because spending 76 seconds 7 times a day to go to the parts department when we have a parts advisor who is, um, kind of being a rover in the parts department. They're kind of doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Perhaps they could start delivering parts. Maybe that's a thing. Even if it's just, once a day they do it, or something like that. I maybe it's an idea. I don't know. If you have any ideas to help me cut down on the time that I spend walking to and from my bay to the parts department, I'd be greatly appreciated, because I'd love to be more productive and help the team. Caring. A, you're caring about your own productivity and your own well-being. B, you're perhaps bringing up something that the entire team is experiencing. And C, you're doing it in a manner where you care about the business. Like, that's kind of all three, right? It's a great way to show and care all in one. So just thinking about your workflow, and if you're having any workflow issues, writing it down and bringing them up to someone who might be able to help you overcome these barriers. Okay. Number 4. So that was number 4, efficient workflow. So number 5, quality control. I left this as the last one because it's probably the most important one. Emphasize attention to detail and adherence to manufacturer standards. It should be your own standards, really. Ensuring that all repairs meet high quality standards reflects positively on the dealership's reputation. In that sentence, I wrote, and then me saying it out loud, it's drivel. The highest level of expectation, or highest level of standard you want to put out there, should be your own. Nothing should be higher than your own standard. Period. End of chat. If you look at building code, you look at engineering design, and what is tolerances and failure rates and things like that. You need to look at your own failure rates and your own quality control in that way. Because, like we said in other things, like in continuous training, your quality of workmanship at the end matters, and how proud you are of what the output. And this is, we're talking about quality control. It's the output of your workmanship. If you care about the output of your workmanship, it means you care about the quality control. Did you torque everything? Did you actually torque everything? Do you have a way to mark, perhaps, that you did torque it? A little blue paint pen or a little white paint pen, mark it that you've torqued it. That way, instead of having to go back again and goes, did I torque it? I don't know. You look for the paint mark. Other things like we talk about being clean when we're in the car. We're in somebody else's property, right? We fix other people's property. So when we're touching it, we're handling it, we're sitting in it, we're doing all kinds of stuff in there. Hopefully not stuff you're not supposed to. But when you're in there, you need to be respectful of other people's stuff. So that when you leave it in as good as or better than shape than when you got it. And I'm not just talking about the repair. Cleanliness matters. Greasy fingerprints, greasy boots, dark greasy boots especially. I've talked about that before, but it's a thing. It's a real thing. If you folks who don't care about quality control, folks who don't care or don't care perhaps enough, don't care to look. It's that simple. I've worked with techs who were like bubble children when they did work. Right? They gloves on, sometimes two pairs of gloves. They'll wear, all kinds of the doctor or the doctor scrub jacket what's it, and they'll wear extra layers on their boots, and they'll wear, they'll condomize the entire car. Now I realize that the premium brands, that's kind of the normal, where it comes in and everything gets just wrapped, right? It just gets wrapped. It doesn't necessarily happen at your local Ford store. If you happen to be banging wrenches at Master Mechanic, probably not going to be condomizing the car when you get in. And it's not COVID anymore, so they really aren't fucking doing it anymore. So the output, your quality control, properly doing any kind of quality control process on your own work will show not only that you care, but you will start leading by example. What's your comeback rate? Do you know what it is? And I go, oh, I get, every once in a while, whatever. Well, every once in a while is a lot of fucking comebacks, buddy. Like, it's a lot. You should be able to count on one hand in a career. That's a good number. That's a good number. It's still not great because it's comebacks, but we're all young mechanics at one time or another. There's a limit, and I don't know when or how to calculate this line, but there's a portion of time in a mechanic's career where you go from young, stupid, irresponsible, ignorant, self-centered, narcissistic asshole mechanic. Learning, they think they know absolutely everything about everything, and they know better than everybody around them. And then they cross a line and realize that they don't know everything. They become respectable, responsible, productive, self-sustaining, driven individuals who are professionals in an exceptionally hard trade that is continuously innovating, that we need to stay on top of. There's a line. Some folks never cross that line. The folks that do cross that line are doing all five of the things that I just mentioned. They are always collaborating with the team. Always. They are always documenting the shit out of everything they do. They are constantly in training. They are constantly optimizing their workflow, and they are constantly hounding not only themselves, but the team about the quality control of their work. And what does that summarize? That summarizes a mechanic who cares. Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Coach's Corner on the Wrench Turners podcast. As always, we appreciate all of the likes, the comments, the shares, the reshares, the subscription, whatever it is that you can do to help us grow the channel, to make sure that the eyes and the ears of every mechanic on the planet gets to hear some of this stuff so they can live a happier, healthier, more productive life on the shop floor. Don't forget that tomorrow we have the next edition of Wrenches for Wrenches newsletter coming out. If you aren't subscribed, please check out wrenchturners.online and sign up for the newsletter. It goes out bi-weekly. It is free. All right, folks, it is in fact free. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about my purchase of my brand new motorcycle and how we can relate that to the service department and things that we can correct. And folks, always remember, negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you put them away.